listening to the Budget Overland podcast, where we talk everything overlanding, have guests on regularly, and even have a bonus show on Mondays called Overland Shenanigans, which it's like it sounds, a bunch of shenanigans. Stick around, see who's on today's episode. Welcome back to another episode of the Budget Overland podcast. I'm your host, Benji. I'm glad you're able to join me here today. Before we get into today's episode, there's a few housekeeping things I would like to run by y'all. Firstly, Overland Shenanigans. We have a good time over there. But what makes it more fun is whenever you call in, ask me a question, or say something about your build, some new gadget you bought, say hello, whatever. If you want to plug an event coming up, that's cool. The phone number for that hotline is 314-266-9536, and I'll leave that number in the show notes so you can scroll down there and call in. And truly do appreciate that, guys. Also, Apple Podcasts. Yeah, that's right. I've been pushing this a lot lately. I want to get to 100 reviews like yesterday. So once we get to 100 reviews over there, I'm going to do a Super Swag Pack giveaway. We're going to do a drawing between the first comment and the 100th comment. And that person's going to get a one-off t-shirt, the only one in the world, multiple stickers, hopefully a patch by then, and maybe a hat. So if you haven't already, go over to Apple Podcasts, leave Budget Overland a review. It really goes a long ways for the show. And it costs you nothing to do that, and it'll take you less than a minute to do it. And you don't need an account, too. So go over there and leave a review. And lastly, if you go over to budgetoverlandportal.com, I've got a buy three, get one free sticker deal going on. And there's a whole bunch of other things over there, too. It takes you to our YouTube channel, Spotify, or not Spotify. What is that? Anyway, go over there. It's a portal. There's a bunch of different links to go everywhere. BudgetOverlandPortal.com. All right, let's get into today's episode. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of the Budget Overland podcast. Today's podcast is going to be kind of fun for me because I've been watching this guy's channel for a couple years now. We met at Moore 2023, and we've finally been able to sit down and have a conversation together. This man is Tyler, and he's from Independence Overland. Tyler, how are you, buddy?
I'm doing so good. How are you?
Good, man. It's funny how we met at Moore, and I felt like I've known you forever, though. We never really communicated on social media whatsoever, but by watching kind of your videos that you've produced over the last couple of years, I've watched. And just to see you walking down whatever Storyteller Row,
Yeah.
I'm like, hey, that's Tyler. So I jumped up and introduced myself, and we hung out for a little bit there. So how have you been since Moore?
Man, I've been good. Moore was awesome. Just to cover that base, Moore was really cool. It was a cool experience being so close to somewhere where I used to live, and the overland scene just didn't exist back then. But since Moore, we went to Arkansas, and we did some crazy stuff there, like the deepest water crossings I've ever done. I'm working on that video right now. And there are 2 videos, I guess, maybe 3, but I think I can do it in 2 videos. And then I've done... What all have I done since then? I've done a Utah trip. I just did 5 days on the border of Arizona and Utah. I went out looking for kind of a reptile hunting trip where I did a bunch of cool off-roading and stuff. And there's a surprising amount of water crossings down there, which was very weird to me. And then I think that's pretty much it. I've done more longer trips this year than I've done weekend trips so far. Because Colorado is still buried in snow on the trail, so I can't really get up there yet.
And from what I've heard, you guys have had a pretty wet spring, and I guess a slow thaw. Would you say that, or?
Yeah, it's more the wet spring will actually melt the snow way faster, and so our water levels are like super high right now to the point where I'm sure there's flooding in some of the mountain towns. But it's a pretty quick thaw. It's just we had record-breaking snow in a lot of the parts of a lot of areas in the mountains. So it's just going to take forever to melt off. This time, last year, me and Natalie were doing trips up to that Flat Tops area that I made a video on.
Yeah.
And this year, from what I understand, it's still got feet of snow up there. So
that's insane.
Yeah, so it's probably early July. And then some of the bigger passes like Pearl Pass, some of the big ones that go really high up in like Aspen, those might not even open this year. I don't know the finals on that, but yeah.
Sheesh.
Yep.
Well, let's get to know Tyler a little bit better. You said you were kind of from the Springfield area. Tell us about that, and then how were you introduced to overlanding?
So yeah, I am from Springfield. I actually bought the FJ at shout out to Reliable Toyota Superstore. If you guys need a Toyota, my friend Adil is actually the sales manager there now, 14 years later.
Nice.
But anyway, but yeah, so I bought the FJ in Springfield, and honestly, I bought it as kind of a transition of I want to get outdoors again like I used to when I was a kid, and then it was also big enough to haul around like a guitar amplifier kind of thing. And so as soon as I bought it, though, the first week that I bought it, I forced myself to drive through tight trees to scratch the thing. And this was like it was a year old. It was used, but it was basically new. And so anyway, I scratched it up. That way I was ready to go. And then, it was just over time, like I started learning from my friend Kevin from Springfield about like lifting and stuff. And he was a Jeep guy. And honestly, like I was into vehicle modifications, but at the time I wasn't really looking to do all that. And then he started showing me, he's like, oh, look what you could do to your FJ. I started looking at this stuff and I was just like, oh, this is cool. And then shortly after that, I met Natalie a month before she moved to Colorado. So she moved here for photography school. And so when I came out here to see her a few times, I was like, okay, this is where I'm going to live at some point. And so we started modifying the FJ with roof racks and stuff like that. And so it was just basically building towards like, I just want to go on adventures. I'd never heard the word overlanding for probably, I don't know, the first 8 years I owned that thing. I don't know if that math works out. Probably the first 5 or 6 years. So
circa whenever you met Natalie and you moved or went out to Colorado, what year was that?
Let's see. She came out here in 2008, 2009, and I came out in 2011. Yeah, so we were doing a long distance thing for a while.
And you were already kind of modding out your vehicle to do the more trails that were up in Colorado or even anywhere, really. Yeah,
it was just more of like I have some memories from when I was a kid. My dad had an FJ40, and so he used to take us out in this thing. And one of my best memories was he took us out to this puddle, and it's totally dark out, and we lived in Texas. And we drive out onto this property that we were renting, and he turns on a spotlight, and there's just like thousands of frog eyes, and I was a big reptile amphibian kid. So anyway, getting out with the net, he handed us all nets, and we got out there and caught all these frogs and stuff. And then we'd go down South Padre Island, and we'd go catch hammerhead sharks and stuff. And so we had all these cool memories as kids out of this Land Cruiser. And my dad was always a Toyota guy, and we all know how that kind of bleeds off onto their sons. And so now I'm a Toyota guy. So anyway, so that's kind of why, because the FJ did look like Dad's old truck sort of a thing. And that thing got lost in the wind at one point. And so there's just nostalgia with it. And so I started building it out just like he did. And now he sees the FJ every once in a while, you know, he's like, you went way farther than I went with mine.
That's cool though. My wife had a 2007 FJ Cruiser, and you know, this was a few years, let's say it's 6 years ago. It was 5 or 6 years ago. And my son was born. That's why we got rid of it, because of the suicide doors. It would have been a nightmare for her to have tried to handle the two. And I was into off-roading, and I might have done like a camping trip once or twice a year, you know, but not like off-roading camping. It was just more like, yeah, let's go down to the creek and whatever. But like, I didn't realize we bought it off. It was used, so we bought it off an older couple. Well, he was deceased at the time, so his wife was selling it. He had a CB radio in there. He had a compass in there. He had a big shelf in the back. And I was I was like, what is all this stuff? You know, so the lady wanted all that stuff back, and like rightfully so. Like, you know, that CB was probably like $300 or something, and you know, all the other stuff that came with it. And then hindsight, looking back, and I was like, and that was only like 5-6 years ago. I was like, man, that was a cool rig. It was a 4.0, had a rear locker in it, vinyl floors, but they were just kind of, it was like a throwback too to the FJ40 with like the front grille, and all that, the little subtleties, you know, even the side lenses and stuff for the turn signals was a really cool touch. So I thought that was cool, but like at that time I had like, I think that was my second gen 4Runner, and that was like our play toy. And that's what kicked me. And I love Toyotas, I think, because of the old school vibe you get from it. You know, and I'm not taking anything away from Jeep or anything, but Jeeps are they're kind of cookie cutter. I like the older CJ5s and 7s, so I'm not knocking anything. But for Toyota guys, it's just like you can nerd over just the little things and the different generation, because they would build them to last, and then looks just came with it.
Yeah,
and then
pretty much.
Obviously, like the reliability part really helps to sell those things. So.
Yeah, and the thing with Toyota is it seems like I kind of compare it to Apple and Samsung as far as, and anybody who's been an Apple user and has stayed an Apple user would kind of understand this. You can do more with a Samsung, like you can jailbreak those phones, you can modify those phones easier, and they always have the cutting edge tech, the folding screens and stuff like that. But people always have problems with them. As Apple kind of waits till it's 5 years down the road, and then they act like it's some big deal that they finally have like the same features that other phones have had. Toyota kind of does the same thing where Chrysler products will have this like giant screens, or they'll have this wireless tech, or the Fords have the remote start with your phone kind of thing. As Toyotas are just now getting that, and it's years down the road.
Yeah.
And they kind of wait until like they're still putting tech into their vehicles, but they wait until it's maybe a little more tried and true. I don't know how perfect it's ever going to be, but it seems like Toyota does that. And so there's kind of some people hate that about Toyota, and they're like, they're not modern. But for people like us, I'm just like, well, I would rather it just works. I don't want to have to take this thing in for a warranty claim or something if I don't have to.
Right. Yeah, and your vehicle, I mean, what year is it? I mean, it's 10,
Mine's
12, 15 years old, so it's old.
Yeah.
Mine's 23 years old, and I think they're still like, they've got the killer look, but they've got the miles and the reliability. Like, I do a timing chain or timing belt cover, water pump, make sure everything's lubed up and checked out, bushings and bearings and all that stuff. You're good to go. And we took mine last year to Colorado, and it has never traveled further than my house to Springfield. I'm telling you, it was like that was a huge leap of faith, just going full bore, messing with the altitude, messing with the long distance with your mud tires and stuff. We made it. But then also I had a huge checklist of things to go over that bothered me from that trip. And that's just with live and learn. You could have stayed comfortable in your own little area. But anyway, getting off track here. We're not interviewing me.
No, you're fine, man.
Where do you, and this is like, there's been some controversial, and I'm sure and I want to get your take on it. So people have obviously, I think, thrown the word Overland, and I don't want to go down this rabbit hole. I just want your opinion on it. They throw the word Overland around kind of loosely. And like I said, I've kind of been into this for 4 years now, maybe 5 years. And at first it was like there was a couple people you could kind of watch on YouTube, or there was a few people on forums that you would want to follow and stuff. And it was really fun and kind of motivated me to get involved. And then all of a sudden now it's kind of like, hey, I'm an Overlander, all this, now there's 50,000 people all over. Yep. And it's like, are you doing it for the sport, the hobby? Are you doing it for the gear? It's everybody's channels kind of turn into a giant commercial.
Yep.
And
sure has.
So, and my take on it is, it's a catch-22, because I'm kind of in that boat of, the podcast and the Facebook group and all that stuff. I don't want to be considered a sellout by any means, but at the same point, if I could help, make decisions for somebody else down the road. So anyway, where do you see Overlanding because of that? Do you see it, getting better or worse because of, I don't want to say the abuse of companies or even the sellout factor for, media people, or if you want to call yourself storytellers or content creators.
So, sorry.
No, I was just going to say there's a fine line there, and I just want to say, get your take on it, I guess.
So I think, the term itself it gets thrown around. So I see posts where people are like, who wants to go overlanding this weekend? And to me, that's not really what that is. But because the term exists, there's obviously the overland tax that we all see in the industry, where it's things are very expensive. But where that goes, I think there is the overland tax, and that's just jacking up prices. And some of those things aren't necessary, but I think that when people can't afford some of those things with the overland tax and things are just ridiculously expensive, they're innovating and coming up with cool products. And then the companies that understand that they're not going to just rip people off and they're going to make something similar, those companies come down the line and they're building something similar, but they're building it with a real price point, or they're building it somewhere where it's not as expensive to manufacture it. Honestly, if you could manufacture some of these goods in the Springfield area, it's a manufacturing city for a reason. And so you could get away with selling those products for cheaper. And so, anyway, I guess I don't know if I'm answering this correctly to exactly what you're looking for, but I think overlanding, and from what I've seen, some people theorize that it's actually the fad starting to wear off for a lot of people, which I'm grateful for, because I've said this all along. I think that it's such a big fad right now is a good thing, because it's pushing these companies to manufacture things that are very cool for the people that use them. And so if somebody that has money but has no interest in actually going out on a trail, or they're just going to do dirt roads, and they have this immaculate truck built, if they're going to sell that to somebody like me 2 years down the road for 50% off, I'm totally okay with that. And it's funding the manufacturers, like the guys at Tactical Application Vehicles that I've become pretty good friends with. Those guys build some of the coolest trucks on the planet. And if there's people out there that want them to build these things, it's giving those guys, their passion is building cool products. And so if it's funding their ability to do something, it kind of goes down the line, trickles down. And then eventually somebody who couldn't normally afford that will be able to afford that. I do think that there's the COVID camping kind of stuff that we all saw. I think that is starting to wear off. People have gone back to work. And anyway, I guess I'm done with that thought. I don't know if that's exactly
fine.
The answer
I like hearing your take on it, and there's no right answer to that, or no right way to answer that. But I've noticed an uptick, and I know, like, you're in Colorado and you primarily see a lot of there's the different clubs and stuff, and a bunch of built out rigs that you guarantee have never been on a trail, but that's neither here nor there. But the thing is, and I really don't want to stay on this topic too long, but like, the people that start an Instagram channel or a YouTube channel primarily for the fact of free goods, and then sometimes, like, there's companies out there that are oblivious to how this works, and they'll just give out a bunch of free product with zero results, or if their expectations were so high, they might get a little defluttered there, or the wind out of their sails, and they don't want to pursue it anymore.
Right.
It's just kind of, it's sad to see, like, it. I
understand what you said. Okay. Yeah. So from that perspective, yes, some of that is being abused for sure. I think there are people that just want, and I mean, I kind of got into the YouTube thing because I wanted to review products, because I just am fascinated with what humans can create. I just think it's super cool. Like, I'm basically, my friends have called me, like, I'm an engineer without a degree. Like, I like that process, but I don't know how to build it. So I'm like, this is super cool. People built this thing, And so I kind of got into it for the same reason, but I'm very big on, like, I'm not going to push things that I don't believe in, and people can see that on my channel. I just reviewed a battery that I wasn't very happy with, and the company's not very happy with me about it. But
let's cut in here real quick, because you do an excellent job of reviews, because you're not biased. It's like, you are, here's the pros, here's the cons. Do what you will with this information that you're given.
Yeah.
So I know a lot of people out there put timelines on reviews, as far as companies, like, hey, I want to review in 2 weeks or 3 weeks or whatever. Do you tell them, like, hey, I'm going to do a review, but it's on my terms, like, I'm going to use this for X amount of weeks, months, whatever, and then we'll do a review? Or you just kind of, how long do you test it, I guess? Or is there a kind of a code that you stand by on yourself before you just kind of endorse it, whether or not it's an affiliate or not, if it's just a plain Jane a review?
So one of my best examples for that, and because I'm still a fairly small channel, like, I'm just now getting the opportunity to review things where companies are reaching out to me, be like, hey, will you try this? So Zero Breeze, those portable ACs, that was one of the first ones that I got to try. So what I did for that video is I did basically an overview of what it was, and I was like, I'm going to go test this thing, and then I'll do a review. So it was basically, because the companies do expect you have to produce something. We're sending you something. So I was like, okay, I won't produce one. I think I produced 3 for them. And so, anyway, I did an overview. This is what this product is. And then I took it through Arkansas on my first Arkansas trip. And I took it for, I think, 9 days or 7 days, through Arkansas. And it was in July. And so, like, I really tested that thing.
Yeah.
And then there's other products that are just kind of, like some of these lithium batteries that I've been testing recently. It's lithium battery cells pretty much all come from China, like pretty much all of them. And if they're saying that they're built in the United States, it's lithium cells that are assembled here. And so, like, that kind of stuff, if it's got USB ports, I understand if the USB ports will work. Maybe they'll give out in a year or something like that, and I would follow that up. But it just kind of depends on the product, I guess, is what I'm getting at. Mm-hmm. And so, because some of these guys are like, we need this review done by such and such date. And so what I've done recently is I'm like, hey, I have a problem with this thing because this port on this isn't working with my refrigerator, for instance. And this particular company was like, okay, sorry to hear that. When can you put the video up? And I was like, okay, if that's how we're playing this, then I just published it, and they got points docked for that, kind of thing. And that's just the honest side of it. And so in a way, like I was just like, I wish this person would just work with me and get a firmware update on this so I don't have to give a bad review.
Right.
But it's just one of those things. So I don't know. Different companies have different ways of doing this. I do express like I use this stuff. I have people trusting me that I'm putting this out there, and I have to. I'm taking that very seriously. And me and my wife actually just had this conversation because for the first several years, some of the things that I reviewed on the channel I've owned for years already. But I'm not a rich man, so the things I'm reviewing are things that I've already used for years. Mm-hmm. So I'm reviewing these products. So products that are being sent to me now. It's like kind of a new thing for me to review things that I haven't had long term. So it just depends on the products and I suppose if it's something complicated or if it were like a new set of suspension or like new shocks or something in the future, then I will review that accordingly. I'll give it like 6 months or something like that or talk about it. And then anyway, I know I'm kind of going on, but
I think it's interesting because a lot of people on the, just the listener end or the watcher end, they don't understand the process. And I think it's very intriguing for them. But like for us, like, a couple people have reached out. I've done reviews and stuff, and they're like, "Oh, we want it done by like this weekend." I'm like, "No, I'm going to wait a month to use it before I tell people." And we're real picky. I'm sure you are too. Whenever you do affiliate deals or anything like that, you want to stand behind that product. A, customer support, and B, the quality. Yeah, and then make sure that your listeners are getting or watchers that are getting what you're selling. I mean, it's pretty crappy for people just to sell themselves out for whatever,
I'm not
5-10% back.
And I do see that a lot. There's a certain amount of that, and I don't know. I don't know. I don't want to bash anybody in on their practices and stuff, but I think most of us know when you're watching a channel if does this person, you go through their feed, is their truck set up in the same place every time? Because I used to follow a guy where I was just like, all of these photos for all of these products are at the same place, and then anyway, it ended up being that this guy was basically doing it in his backyard every time. Not saying he wasn't camping, but it was like all of these products were getting pushed by this guy. And I was just like, I'm not confident. You just have that feeling. I don't know if this guy actually used it. Because when you're a person that actually uses this stuff and beats your truck up, there's a conversation you can have with somebody and cues you can pick up on where you're like, I don't know that this dude knows what he's talking about. So I think people just need to be... That's a good point. Yeah, people just need to be careful listening to somebody. If your gut says like, I don't think this guy knows what he's saying, move on from it.
Right. Well, let's shift gears here a little bit because I'm sure we could talk hours about
for sure
everything we've covered in the first 10 minutes or 20 minutes so far. All right. So like getting into videography and capturing your moments and stuff, like what led to you starting a channel? What led to you picking up a camera and be like, I'm going to start documenting all this, not reviews, but like your trips.
Right. So I've always worked with cameras. When my dad still owned that FJ40, I must have been 8 years old. I remember we had a home video camera. Me and my cousin used to film like these reenactments of like Schwarzenegger movies kind of stuff. Nice. And anyway, I remember the camera breaking at one point. I asked my dad, I was like, can I take that thing apart? And he was always just like, oh yeah. So he'd give me a screwdriver and I'd take this. And once you open it up, you're like, what am I going to do with this? But anyway, I was always fascinated with cameras and I've always used cameras. And I was always that guy that just kind of walked around with the friend group and I had a video camera. Even in high school, I don't know how I came up with the money to buy that thing, but I had a video camera. And so as years go by, like I recorded everything. I've had so many different hobbies. Like when I moved here, I was a glass blower. I was a glass blower for like 9-10 years. And I used to sell glass and blow glass in Springfield, moved out here. And then I left that life behind. And so and then musician in my early 20s. And so when I did these things, there was always like a video aspect. And then when I started, when I left the glass blowing thing, I'm like a workaholic, as my wife says. And so I needed something to put my extra time into. And so I was just like, why am I not? I want to pursue being outside more because the glass blowing thing, I was always inside of a building with a ventilation. There's a sodium flare that comes off the glass. So you can't have people like hanging out with you really. It's like looking at a welder basically. Yeah. So, I spent so many years and nights and weekends inside that building and I'd take the FJ out and go do stuff. But I was like, okay, I'm going to do this more because time is fleeting, So I was like, okay, how do I spend more time outside and how can I basically make some money off of this and work towards this as a potential career in my future. So I started doing the videos and I just kind of stuck with it. I don't remember exactly actually I do know exactly what pushed me over. There's a guy, Jailbreak Overlander. I don't know if you've heard of this guy. Yeah. So during COVID, I was doing some videos
he's
anyway.
In Colorado, right?
I think he's in like Ohio or something like that.
Yeah, he's done a lot of trips down there.
Yeah, he does a lot of stuff all over the place. He kind of investigates things. He's working on a big project right now, I know. I talked to him a little bit on social media here and there. But during COVID, I'd done a few videos prior to this, but I just wasn't taking it serious. So during COVID, AluCab did a giveaway. I think they did a tent giveaway and an awning giveaway or something like that. But it was basically like everybody's locked in their house. And so they did this competition of the most creative way to open an awning, and we're going to give an awning away. And at the time, I had a second FJ Cruiser that I bought to build up and rent out right before COVID hit, which was, everybody has their story about COVID. So anyway, we went out and filmed this video. It's still on the channel, and it's just kind of a goofy, fun video where, like, I wake up and I've got this one FJ, the black FJ that I built, and it's got a basic rooftop tent and a basic, I don't even think it had an awning. And anyway, that's like the bad FJ or the lesser FJ. And then anyway, it's this whole sequence where I wake up and I'm in a dream and I've got the AluCab equipped FJ. It's this whole thing. And so Richie from Jailbreak Overland, he saw it and he just reached out to me. I had like 100 subscribers at the time. And he was like, hey, man, he's like, I'm going to repost your video on my channel, which at the time I think he had like 50,000. And he was like, you need to stick with this and you need to pursue this. Like, you're super talented. And I've always been really into video. I just never took it in a way, for whatever reason, I just never even considered it. And I was always terrified of being in front of a camera because I still feel like a narcissist when I talk to the camera. Just for everybody listening to this, if you watch my videos, you'll rarely see me in like an area with a bunch of people around me. I walk away from camp because I feel like such a narcissist being like, oh, here's what Tyler has to say.
Sure.
Anyway, I just, after Richie gave me that shout out, I was like, okay, I'm going to pursue this and see where it goes. And then over time, you just kind of get more comfortable with it. And then it just sort of evolved. But again, I used to really love movies as a kid. I still do. And so that's where like my narration and like my style kind of comes from, because I just observed how Hollywood works.
It's very easy to watch and to listen. And I always, like, my wife makes fun of me because I always watch like overlanding videos and all this stuff. It's like, it's just a good unwinder for me. I'm not living vicariously through you or anything. It's just like, you'll never end up in like 90% of these people's videos, places like, so it's cool to just watch people and like the different scenarios that occur, different trail terrains and all that stuff. It's fun to watch. But like, with Baker and Eagles Over, like, these guys have like such a good narration, the videography and the storytelling.
I love Baker.
And it's like his buttery. Anyway, enough of you, Baker. He always makes it. Anyway, it's like, it's funny. And it's not funny. It's just like, we're listening and watching we're watching these guys drive and then like tell a cool story. It's funny if you think about it, but it's like, in the moment, it's just like, epic.
Yeah.
So cool.
Yeah, it's fun.
It is fun. And there's no shame in that. And I wish, like, so my goal for like 2024 is to actually buy a decent camera and to try to work on my side, just random stories. I like my little iPhone. I like putting together little video clips and stuff. Like, I think I've got 15 videos on my YouTube channel, which is fine. It's fun. Like, anytime me and my buddies do a weekend trip or something, we always try to come out with something. So anyway, it's a good time. And I don't know, it's a good way to record your trip and look back in 5 years or whatever.
Yeah, definitely. There's going to come a time for all of us where we're going to be like, you're not going to be able to do this kind of stuff anymore. And if you have the videos to look back on, it's going to be super cool.
Show your kids, your grandkids, whatever. Yeah,
because there's so many. I mean, like I said, I've always filmed everything. And so anytime my friends have memories from places, almost always, like, I won't even think about it. And then I'll be scrolling through some of my old stuff in the iCloud, and I'll come across it and I'm like, I have exactly the conversation we were talking about and I have it on film. And I'm just like, I can't believe this. And so anyway, I kind of think about that when we do these trips, because I'm like, someday I will very much appreciate this.
That's going to be wild. Like, not to get off track, but like for our generation in 40 years, go back to the cloud when you were in your 30s and listening and seeing stuff. Like, it's like home videos on steroids. It's going to be like our hair is going to stand up on the back of our necks. It's going to be like, whoa, it's like a memory, but it's real. It's documented memories.
It's documented, and right now it's HD, but honestly, in 40 years, your kids will be like, you guys actually watch this? 4K, what a joke.
No doubt. Holograms will be epic by then. Well, cool, man. So I wrote down a few questions. Just kind of, I want to keep this all on topic and all about you. I want people to want to go reach out and watch your channel. So, like, when did your channel launch? Was it 2020 or 19?
I honestly don't know. It was probably, if I were to guess, it was probably 2018 or 2019. Like I messed around with a few reviews, and like I said, in the early days, I did like one video in the course of like a year because I just didn't feel comfortable being on camera. I felt like an idiot. So it was like I did one video, and then I did one video, and then eventually I got to like one a month, and now I try to do one a week if I can. And so it was just like a slow process. So it was probably, if I were to guess, it was probably 2019 or so when I did the Independence Overland thing. And Independence Overland was started as the rental thing because that's kind of when I was putting out feelers of how can I spend more time in this industry and get something out of it other than, obviously I love the trips. That's the biggest part.
Right.
And that's the reason I got rid of that is because it ended up being like, I don't want to get ready on the weekend for somebody else's camping trip. I want to do my own. So anyway, but then I just transitioned into the video side of it. But I think that was probably around 2019. Sounds about right.
And the growth since then, because what are you at 50,000? Where are you at?
I'm only at 15.3, I think, which is crazy because I think it was like 3 months ago that I hit 10, and now it's just been exponentially growing. Yeah. And it's really wild to see that happen. And it's
fun for like us to watch like channels grow like that. I think it's great because you guys do put a lot of work into it. And I'm not a YouTuber by any means, but like, people out there, they don't realize that the amount of effort in editing and the clips and stuff, the shots that you set up that you don't use, they don't see that stuff.
Yeah.
It's like deleted files.
Yeah, and I've gotten a little bit of reprieve recently. I finally found an editor that helps me. All he does is he cuts out so I have the FJ, and you can't tell if your camera's recording because it's always in bright light in the middle of the day. So you run out to somewhere, set the camera up, hit record, run back to the truck, drive past the truck, get out, turn it off. So this guy just goes in and he takes out all the unnecessary stuff.
Sure.
And it makes my life so much easier.
Awesome.
So it's slowly making it easier to pump these things out. But yeah, so there is a lot of work. Like, I mean, anytime I watch any kind of a production, I have a different appreciation for it, especially in the last 2 years where I really started hammering into these trip videos where I do the narration and everything. Because any type of production I see, even if it's like not the best in the world, I'm just like, I know the effort that this person put into this, and I have nothing but respect for it because it's crazy. Like some of these videos, this Arkansas video, by the time it's all said and done, my side of the editing, I'll probably have 30 to 40 hours into it, I'm sure. And so, anyway,
how long of a clip? How long of a video?
I think the whole thing will be about an hour and a half long.
Wow.
Yeah. And so I'm going to release it. I'll release it in 2 or 3 episodes. And then probably like a year from now, I'll release it as one big video. It's going to be cool. Man, it's going to be cool. Those water crossings are so fun.
And I think we did a trip. When was that? April that you guys went down there? That was right after. So you guys, April. We were in Arkansas February. And the waters even in February were high. So I couldn't imagine what they would be like in April.
Over the headlights. That was a new one for me.
That's awesome, man.
Yeah,
and it's wild. So funny. It's funny to like, because once you're driving through that stuff, it's scary.
Yep.
But if you had a drone up and then somebody on the other side of the bank capturing, you're like, that's even worse than like what it actually is.
Yeah. That was the downside for us is since I'm the video guy, and like Natalia helps me, my wife Natalia, she helps me film. But like with that kind of a thing, we got this awesome HD video of the other 2 vehicles going across this. But for me, it was only the drone, which is still 4K, but it's not the same as my big Sony camera,
Sure.
So I was bummed out, but I was like, I'm not going to wade chest deep with this multi-$1,000 camera over my head just to get this one shot. No way. So maybe someday I'll be that bold, but not yet.
So I want to branch off into some random stuff. I know your Baja trip was awesome. What year was that? Was that 22?
That was 22, yes.
Summer of or spring?
Yeah, we went. I think that was in May. I think that was late May, early April when we went.
So if you could kind of forecast this for us? Like, if you were planning the trip, how long in advance were you planning for? And we'll just kind of dissect this.
So we started, I believe it was I think it was November 11th that I had the meeting with everybody. And so I was doing Skype calls because I'm very particular on, some people aren't good at planning and some people are. And my time is very important to me, just in life in general. And so my friends are happy to let me plan these things because a lot of people don't like planning trips. So anyway, I had Skype calls with people. And so we'd have these meetings. And so what I put together was I'd be like, okay, here's the plan. I think we can make it from here to here realistically. And then I would take down people. I was like, what do you want to see in Baja? What's important to you on this trip? Is it a fishing charter? Is it camping on the beach? Is it the food? And so I took everybody's stuff down. And then I was like, everybody asked me questions. And so I wanted questions from everybody. So we'd have these Skype meetings I think we only did 2 or 3 of them. And so we would have these meetings about it. And I would just be like, okay, so for instance, like one of my friends was just like, are we allowed to bring a weapon with us? Because they're terrified, And I was just like,
sure.
Just those little things. And I was just like, absolutely not. You cannot do that. We will go straight to jail. So it was nice having people ask these questions and what happens if you break down and things like that, which for anybody listening that's interested in going to Baja, this is a fun thing that a lot of people don't know. If you break down in Baja, Mexico wide has this thing. They're called the Green Angels, I believe is what it's called. You pop your hood and you wait, and eventually a service truck will drive by, and the parts aren't free. You'll have to pay for parts, but the service is free. They'll fix your vehicle on the side.
Really?
Yep. It's one of those things.
Wow.
So if you break down, a lot of people don't know that. Because like, what happens if you literally pop your hood and just wait, and eventually you'll see these service trucks?
What in the world? Like, is that through the government?
Government does it.
Wow.
Yeah, and if they need a part, then they'll drive back to the nearest town and go get it. Which who knows what that could be.
So you're just paying for parts.
Paying for parts. Yep, they'll get you on the road.
That's insane.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Cartel money.
Yeah.
We won't say that. So did it meet your expectations?
Dude, it was the coolest. It was the coolest trip. Like, I mean, you can go, like when I go to Arkansas, I'm like, man, this is so incredible. Even though I used to live in the general area, when I go down there, it's just such a different experience than what I'm used to on a weekend basis, daily basis. And so that's like impactful. But when you go somewhere like Mexico, and especially a place where it's so inexpensive to eat and the gas was inexpensive, it's remote, you're driving on beaches. And I'm telling you, man, I said it in the video, and there's no exaggeration whatsoever. We're on these beaches and there was nobody. Well, there was the one Land Rover that we passed, and then we go down the beach and we don't see anybody else for a couple days. And then we went to the next beach where we found that whale carcass.
That was insane.
Dude, there was one Jeep Gladiator, I think, that came down at one point, and they were looking for a fishing spot. They kind of walked the shore and then they left. And we didn't see anybody. We had this beach to ourselves. I think we were at that beach for 3 days, 2 nights. But just being that wild in another country, there's a certain amount of freedom that comes from that, where you're just like, man, this is so cool.
That would be like next level feels like, of camping, like overlanding. We're doing it. We're in the middle of nowhere. We're actually doing it.
The real deal.
Yeah. I mean, and seeing that enthusiasm and excitement on your crew that went with you was like, it was genuine. It was awesome to watch.
Yeah.
And the thing that was weird was the whale carcass.
The whale was so cool.
Insane.
Yeah.
When walking up, that thing was like, what was it? A vertebrae?
Yeah. There's the vertebrae that we found, and then we found and then you could see all like the digits on it. And my friend, I went to high school with him in Missouri, the guy with the Tacoma. And so he's kind of an amateur biologist. And so It was cool having him there because he knows everything about animals in general. And so he kind of broke down some of that stuff in the video, which is fun to discuss. But yeah, it was basically just a mummified whale, full-size whale just sitting on the beach. And we'd seen it through the drone. And I was like, there's something weird over there. And then we had a few drinks, and then I was like, all right, we got to walk over there and see what's going on. And I did not expect it to be like fairly intact animal.
That was pretty impressive. Did you guys have any major hiccups like down there and on your way back?
So
major hiccups.
The black FJ that went with us is actually the FJ that I built. So so the one hiccup we had was her. She was telling me her name's Jessica, and she was just like, this thing's got a weird vibration going on. And I took it in for an alignment several times. Took it to my mechanic. He can't find out what's going on with it. And so I was like, okay, I need to check this out. And it was after we were leaving our first beach campsite. And I looked at it and I was just like, oh, the top shock mounts are loose on this thing. I had installed that a year and a half, 2 years earlier. So I kind of felt, I was like, oh, okay, well, I installed this, even though it's been driven since then. Like, this is my responsibility. I kind of felt like. So aside from that, I don't think so. Any hiccups? No, it was, you would think that kind of stuff would happen, but in my experience, it was so laid back and it was so easy. And me and the wife even talked before, because, when you go over the border the first time, everybody's going to be like, all right, we need a group of people so we're safe. And like, it was so hiccup free that we were like, okay, we'd be comfortable doing this just us at some point if we need to, and meet up with somebody down there or something. And we are talking about doing that, which it's going to be in a new vehicle. So it's going to be a little scarier, but yeah, so I don't think we had any hiccups other than that suspension.
That's great
issue.
So all the planning and everything, that the hours that went into it, you felt, that you did your jobs.
Paid off. Yeah. Because I had, I went to discoverbaja.com, I believe is what it is. And they will give you all the information on, like, if you're bringing a dog with you, like we did, this is what you need to have. You need to have these documents, and which they didn't end up wanting at the border. They didn't care. But there's certain things like that I had together for everybody. And I think it was like a $50 fee, but I could just share that with everybody. And you do need to get your vehicle insured through Mexican insurance. There's no way around that. And then like little things like that. But it still wasn't expensive. I think the whole trip with fuel and food cost me like $1,400. And that's a 14-hour drive from Colorado. It's actually, because we were talking about going to South Padre at first, but I was like, Baja's closer. Let's just do that.
Might as well.
Yeah, Padre, I think, is a 22-hour drive. It's crazy how big Texas is. But anyway, yeah, it was a cheap trip, and it was absolutely epic. We cannot wait to go back.
How many days was it again?
We went for 7 days. 9 days. We went for 9 days.
So 2 days of driving.
Yep.
9 or 7 days of hanging out.
Yep. And we just booked it down there, and we ended up going by the Grand Canyon, which wasn't really planned in the first place, but we were just like, well, we're here, we might as well stop. But I planned all of our routes to where it was like, okay, here's our campsite. We're going to be within an hour and a half of the border. So that way, first thing in the morning, even if we're delayed, we're still crossing mid-morning. And so we're going in on a Sunday versus like a Friday or Saturday is always a no-no because of the traffic. So we're going in on a Sunday, just zipped right through. Everybody else is coming out. And then when we were coming out on a Saturday, and everybody else is coming in. And so that kind of stuff really added up to just making it a breeze to go through.
So obviously I'm interested in Baja. That's why I brought it up, because I told my wife, I was like, one day we're going to go to Baja. I mean, it's just gorgeous down there. And I'll have to look it up again anyway. So like, I was wanting to do like a New Mexico trip, and then just kind of take some time and just do the Baja, knock it off, and then just go home. I love talking to people that travel to Mexico, because the people that haven't, like myself, it's always like, ooh, it's a dangerous place and all this stuff. And it's like, once people are in there, it's like, no, it's actually pretty cool, as long as you don't travel at night. Don't make yourself look like a target or anything. It's just like,
and it's interesting because when you go over the border, like I was kind of concerned. I mean, I don't know, I don't want to sound bad, but I didn't know what to expect. And so I'm like, I'm driving this cool, to me, I still love my FJ Cruiser. Sure. Yeah. And it's a decent looking truck. It's all scratched up, but I was just like, I don't know what I'm going to be up against. The first stoplight we pull up to, there's like brand new BMWs, Ford Raptors. And so I'm just looking around. I'm like, these people don't care about what I'm driving at all. And so as we're going through, I mean, we're seeing like Unimogs and Earth Roamers out in these areas because there's these markets where you stop and fill up your water tanks and stuff. And there's just so many like high end vehicles. And I was just like, I'm the last person these people care about. And then for anybody that does have that fear or just concern, just remember that like guys like Marco, he's got his 392 Jeep. That's like a, it's like a $90,000 Jeep he takes with that camper behind it. Yeah. And so there's so many people doing that. I am going to be slightly more intimidated when I take my new vehicle down there that I've not officially announced yet. But anyway, I'm going to have a newer vehicle. And so we are planning on going back down there next year.
There's not a lot of awning space, though, for a Honda Civic, though. So
no, not quite. Make it work.
No, I won't say nothing. Let's shift gears and get crazy. Your Sonoma trip.
Oh, Sedona?
Sedona, my bad. Sedona.
You're right. You're good.
How many aliens did you see?
Man,
some stuff you didn't say in film. Some stuff you said, like, can't show you this or whatever. It's like,
yeah, so there was an agreement. I looked into it because I was like, okay, who do I have to pay to take my camera into this? They're like, no cameras whatsoever. And I was just like, okay. And you raise your hand to agree you're not going to talk about all this stuff. or certain things about it. There's certain things they want kept secret. So we agreed to do that. And so we had to do it that way. I am so serious. Like the whole tour was kind of hokey, like stuff that you've heard in every UFO documentary ever made, But then as this lady's talking about stuff, like she was just like, oh, that can't be a satellite because satellites don't move over Sedona. And I'm just like, what are you talking about? I'm just like, so me and Natalia, we both had a pair of night vision goggles. And these night vision goggles in particular are not the ones that shine a light out and reflect it back and pick that up. They actually just pick it up on their own. Gen 3, I think is what they're called. And so anyway, we're not paying attention to what she's telling everybody else. There's a group of like 12 people. So there are different things that they're talking about. Like some of them are called twinklers, and you'll see a group of these things come in and they're just like kind of twinkling in the sky. Maybe some of them are just stars. You don't know. You can't explain it. But then we did start seeing things that were flying around. There is for sure a triangular formation of lights moving through the sky that we were just like, what is going on? And towards the end of the tour, some of the other people that were just looking at what the tour guide was telling them to look at, they looked over and they're like, what are these guys looking at? And they came over and they're like, whoa. And so everybody came over to look at what we're seeing because you could see these things like hovering in the sky. And the three of them were in a perfect formation and they were like moving up and down. And then there was some other lights over this far mountain that were kind of moving up and down as well. They're acting very strangely. And there is military activity in that area. So who knows what some of that was. But we saw something where I was just like, okay, like thinking about this, I can't exactly explain this. The ones that were satellites, I could tell were satellites. These things were not flying like a plane because they just, you're not doing that. And there was no noise. It was a dead silent night. So anyway, it was a fun trip. Like that was a fun, we're like, what should we do for Halloween? I think we should get out and do another trip. And so I started looking around and I was like, there's UFO tours in Sedona. I was like, we are going. So yeah, we really enjoyed that one. That one was cool.
That was funny. It was like, I don't know. I've not been out there, but like I've heard a lot of stories, and like you got Skinner Ranch and all that weird stuff.
Oh yeah. I want to go.
It's like they should do some Overland themed, quote unquote Overland.
Yep. I wish they'd let me on.
That's funny though. Before we wrap it up, and I'm not sure if we're there yet. I mean, we're having a good time. What's some items over the year? It's budget Overland. For me, I try to tell people and myself primarily, it's like it doesn't take a lot to get out and go do this stuff.
Right.
Prioritizing what your needs versus your wants are. Try to stay off the internet as best you can whenever you're looking at building out your rig because you'll spend a fortune. And have an understanding of why you're purchasing said things, XYZ, whatever it may be. Like for my vehicle, I don't even have an awning on the side. I wish I did, but I've got a Prinsu profile or low profile rack with the clamshell that folds out to the, the passenger side. So I can't put an awning on there. Is there anything like in your journey, because you've been doing this for a while, any advice to anybody starting out, as far as gear and moving to the next level of things, maybe whenever you started out that you would change looking back?
Even though it is the theme of budget overlanding, I would say that the budget rooftop tents, if you're one of those people where you're just like, I want a rooftop tent, the conveniences and the comfort and all this stuff, the cheapest rooftop tents you can find on the internet, you will want to sell that thing very likely within the first year of owning it, because I've known so many people. I was one of them. I got one of those tents and then it became a thing where I found myself actually like not wanting to go on certain trips if it wasn't 3 or 4 hours to Utah. I was just like, I don't want to go because I don't want to mess around with that thing.
Yeah.
And having to stand on your roof and deal with that, like I would just hold out, do the ground tent thing or do the swag or whatever you have. I would hold out and just save a little bit more money and get something that is a hard shell or a hybrid hard shell, whatever can fit, but get something that's a fast setup. And it's not the fast setup that matters. It's the fast pack away, because if you get injured or somebody else gets injured, that's the problem. I bow hunt and I was up at like 12,000 feet and I was packing up that soft sided tent I had, and I was realizing there's frost on it. And I was like, if I fall off of this, like this is going to be a major problem. And that's when I like came back from that trip and I was like, I'm ordering the Alu cab I've wanted forever. So anyway, I guess that's kind of not budget related.
Are you saying like soft tops in general?
Yeah, the style, like the cheapest ones you can find that are just like the simple flip overs.
Yeah,
but then
But like the soft cover that you throw on there, are you talking like 23 zeros?
Yeah, just the soft cover ones in general. I know some of them are nicer. Like
that's what I've heard.
Yeah,
I mean, in general, like people that buy, even if it's a nicer one, like the ones that where you have to throw the cover on and then snap it together. I mean, everybody says it's a pain in the butt. And I mean, if you're going once or twice a year, you know, fine, sure, whatever. But if you're going like multiple nights a month, invest in a better tent.
Yep.
Hands down.
Something quick. Yeah, and what I found with my Alu cab is like it's so easy to go somewhere, pack up, or go somewhere, set up, and pack up that we started going more and more.
Yeah.
And so, and now it's kind of evolved into what it is because it's not a hassle at all anymore. So,
good points.
So I would recommend that people save money for that. And then on some of the other stuff, I just recommend people don't be afraid to build your own stuff. Even if you don't have like the tool set or something, if you want to build like a drawer system, there's so many YouTube videos out there that will teach you how to build a drawer setup. Like the drawer I have on top of my refrigerator in there. I've had a lot of people be like, who'd you buy that from? Because I've got a DFG off-road sticker on there. They're the guys that make my fridge slide. But I'm just like, I actually built that thing out of scrap aluminum. I just cut it all up. I bought like a $20 saw, electric saw, and I built that thing. And no big deal. Like you can figure it out. So that's my biggest thing is don't think you have to buy like the high-end goose gear. Once you get to a certain point, you'll understand like, oh, this is the value is there for me. But in the early days, just build your own stuff and you'll enjoy it more. You'll have more appreciation for those high-end items. If you do get to a point in life where you're like, I want to buy something that's just made for me. So,
and going back to all these dealers now and all these manufacturers and different companies, there's competition now. So, if there was, 4 years ago, there was maybe 2 drawer slide systems. Now there's like 10.
Yeah, there's dozens.
So there's a ton now. So I don't know. Now look for reviews, like honest reviews.
Yep.
I hate, we talked about it early in the show, but it's like, there needs to be a certain, and I'm working on something right now to where without giving it away, I'm wanting, cause budget's not cheap. Like budget is, to me, it's like I'm budgeting my money. So if I've got a 23-year-old vehicle, how am I going to make that 23-year-old vehicle do what I want it to do?
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to go through the motor. I'm going to go through the drivetrain. I'm going to go through all the bushings. If I'm going to lift it, I'm going to do all this stuff, but I'm budgeting my build. Recently, like last July, we bought the rooftop tent, and it's a Desert Armor plastic, it's plastic. I don't think it's fiberglass, and it's a fold out tent and everything. And it's been fantastic. And 2 years ago, I was laughing at rooftop tents. I was like, these are ridiculous, they're stupid, whatever. Until I got flooded out one time. Me and my wife, it was pouring down rain. It was an older tent. We even had a cot, and it was like, this is miserable. So anyway, long story short, that's why we're where we're at. And I always say we're on different journeys. And my journey right now is I've got a low cost fridge, compared to like a Dometic or something, but that's where I'm at on my journey. Mm-hmm. I don't feel like spending $1,500 to $2,000 right now on a fridge, but I'm on a different journey than most. I only take maybe a couple long distance trips a year, but I'm more of a weekend warrior guy myself. And it does well for me. So
yeah,
I think we're all on just different levels. Yeah. So one day, maybe if I'm doing it more full time, you'll see the value in that gear for that price point.
Yeah, definitely.
And then by then you'll have reviews too.
Yeah, I think a lot of guys get on social media and they see that, like the Overland guys, they've got the National Luna fridge, the most expensive fridge, the most expensive flatbeds, and it's definitely not necessary. You can have the same experience with the budget items, and I guess you really just have to base it off of. And back to what I was saying about the tent, like if that's all you're going to be able to get, you'll probably make do with it because you'll be happy with it because it's just like, well, this is what I can afford, and I'm not getting past a $600 tent or whatever. So I don't want to.
It can get stupid expensive, and we all understand that. I mean, you could spend $20,000 and be like, where'd my money go?
Like those red tail carbon fiber rooftop tents that are like $25,000 now.
Right, dude. What's that new product that's coming out? I can't think of. If I can think of it, I'll send it to you later. But there was something that's coming out. I'm like, I'm getting that, and I was like, I couldn't even tell you what it does. I'll have to look it up. It's funny. There's so much stuff that goes through my brain every day. I'm sure yours too.
Yep.
You see all this stuff every day. Well, we're getting close to an hour. Is there anything that you want to touch on?
Not particularly. I've got let's see. Yeah, I don't know, not particularly, man. We're planning on going to the Overland Expo Pacific Northwest soon. We're going to do a 2-week trip around that. Go meet up with some other content creators and stuff. It should be pretty fun. I think we're going to see Will from Venture to Rome over there, and there's several guys that are going to be at the show.
Man, I wish I could go to that one. As far as like Overland Expos, I've never been to any of them. Everyone says if you can go to the Pacific Northwest.
It is the best. It's so nice. Green grass. Like if you go to the one in Colorado, it's cool, but it's a dirt lot, and it says otherwise on the website, or at least it did the first year. And it's just basically a dirt lot, and the wind's always kicking up, and it's that hot, dry heat. Arizona's pretty cool, but it's so big, and unless you're paying for the premium camping, you got quite a hike. The PNW one is just beautiful green grass, and it's the Pacific Northwest, so it's like the beautiful temperatures, beautiful foliage. It's our favorite for sure. We haven't been to the East one, but yeah, I would recommend that as well.
Sweet. You have plans to go to Rendezvous in the Ozarks?
No, I do not. When's that?
Third weekend of October.
No, I don't think so. I was considering going back home to see my dad again this year. So who knows? Maybe who knows what'll happen.
Have you ever done one of the rendezvous before?
Never have.
Cool. Yeah. I think this is their 6th year, but it's grown quite a bit every year.
What was that event that happened right after Moore? The bonfire?
Yeah, Bonfire Rendezvous, which that's kind of their kickoff. It's the Natural State Overland of Arkansas. They put on both of these events. The bonfire is pretty much just like whoever can show up.
Okay.
And then Rendezvous in the Ozarks is more of a higher production. It's kind of like a smaller Moore. There's exhibitors that show up and set up all their stuff, and then people just camp. And then it's a 2-night, 3-day, and on the last night they do all the vendors donate something to give away. And as you enter the park, you pay for your camping and for the event. You get a ticket. So they do a drawing the last night, and I think last year they gave away like rooftop tents, winches, Zarges boxes, all this cool stuff. It was like, thousands, not thousands. There was, I think, 600 or 700 vehicles last year.
Wow.
So we're all just kind of sitting out around this huge field. They're drawing out numbers. It's grown quite a bit, over the last, this is going to be my 3rd year going. I didn't go COVID year because it was kind of up in the air.
Yeah.
But yeah.
I drove right past the bonfire whenever I was doing that water crossing. Yeah, and I didn't realize that's what was happening. And I was like, oh, we happened, because I talked to, I think, you and some other people about it. And I was like, no, I'm not going to that. And then we drove right past the turn in, and I was just like, no, I'm not. I had other stuff going on.
We were planning on going. It just didn't happen for me. So
yeah,
it is what it is, though.
For me, it's I got the Overland Expos, and I get a lot of content out of those because I love walking around and interviewing people and just checking out the new gear. And because I'm still a full-time, 50, 55-hour week working man, I can only spend so much of my time at these kinds of events.
Sure.
Because my time outside is why I got into this in the first place, and I won't let that slip away. I don't want to be one of the people that we're talking about, because there are people that seem to build these trucks up and they go just to the expos. It's like, I don't know if they actually do much outside of just showing up to show their stuff off. So anyway, I don't know if I'll be able to do some of that stuff, but maybe in the future as time allows.
Well, and that's the thing too. I mean, you're wanting to do your own adventures too. It's an what do you call it? An expo overlander, and that's all they do is just go boom, 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 boom. Oh, season's over. It's call it a season for 6 months. That's exactly what it is.
Yep.
But I'm not throwing shade on anybody. I mean, that's fine.
Now, again, they're pushing the envelope. They're pushing these manufacturers to make cool stuff for people that do go up and scratch their stuff up. I'm happy about it.
No, that's great. Is there anything else you want to talk about before we close this out?
I don't think so. I think I'm doing pretty good.
How can people follow you, get in touch with you, all this stuff?
Okay, so the YouTube channel is Independence Overland, and on Instagram, Independence Overland. And then I have independenceoverland.com, where I've got some cool merch and stuff on there. Most of where my content goes out to is going to be on YouTube. Instagram's probably second. TikTok, I barely mess around on. Same name on TikTok. But anyway, most of my effort and all of my time goes into YouTube. I really don't have much time outside of that. So anyway, those are my main channels.
I will put all this information in the show notes. So if you guys are listening and you're driving, be sure to check out the show notes whenever you're parked. Scroll down, click on all the links, do a subscribe, do a follow, do a like, all the fun stuff. Tyler, I appreciate you coming on the show.
Hey, thanks for having me, man.
Out.
Yeah, this is awesome.
So one of these days we'll do a trip together, I'm sure.
Yes, please.
And I will definitely pick your brain furthermore whenever I'm ready to do a Baja run.
Yes. I mean, I'm here for you. Maybe I'll go with you.
That'd be fun.
Yeah.
Tyler, appreciate it. Guys, have a great Thursday. We'll see you back here on Overland Shenanigans. Bye-bye.